I am Maestro Drake, and George Lucas has turned 80 years old, so it's official that he's officially outlived the lifespan of Star Wars.
Rated T for teen. Yeah, I'm here for my license.
Get behind that yellow line.
Yeah, I know license.
You gotta get out of my face. You ain't gotta get so pop license.
Yeah,
I got on you. You try to the mall.
I got a crazy taxi.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I get paid for. I made some serious cake that day.
They still care about Crazy Taxi.
Sega Dreamcast, it's thinking. Check this. Yeah, she's grooving on that. Gentlemen, I remind you that the female of the
Is this part 2 or part 1?
Hey, get up there. She wants it. Hey, baby.
It's a killer.
Space Channel 5, I would say the
Part 1. I still have it. Love that. Fun fact, all the Sega Dreamcast games start with the letter S. Sonic, Shenmue, Space Channel 5, right? Phantasy Star, well, Star starts with an S. Is this Last Revelation? It's garbage. We had a tremendous 18 months. Dreamcast is on fire. We really thought that we could do it, but then we had a target from Japan that said we had to make X hundreds of millions of dollars by the holiday season and ship X millions of units of hardware. Otherwise, we just couldn't sustain the business. Somehow I got to make that call, not the Japanese. I had to fire a lot of people. It was not a pleasant day. So on January 31st, 2001, we said Sega is leaving hardware. We were selling 50,000 units a day, then 60,000, then 100,000, but it was just not going to be enough to get the critical mass to take on the launch of PS2. It was a big stakes game. Sega had the option of pouring in more money and going bankrupt. They decided they wanted to live to fight another day. Peter Moore, I think he was the president for America, Sega, on the Dreamcast discontinuation. What you're looking at here is a big sample, a huge sample of all the Sega arcade machines, okay? Now, this is all in the past, but what's relevant is, I don't know what that is. Oh, look at this one. Now, they used to have old school, so in the olden days, we had carnivals, right? Toss somebody in the dunk bin, right? You hit the target, somebody falls into a tank. Uh, throw a ball at the cups, get a prize, get a stuffed animal, right? You go to the pop-up carnivals, right? Carnivals. And then carnivals turned into penny arcade machines and Nickelodeons. Not Nickelodeon the network, but I'm talking about, if your great grandpa were still alive, he could talk about Nickelodeons and peekaboo machines where you crank the handle and you see the little moving pictures in black and white. Of the olden days when Edison was cool, right? Thomas Edison. And from there, we had arcade machines. And here you got slot. This was the beginnings of Sega, a slot machine. Okay. And they now live on legacy stuff with At Games, which I think At Games is still making shit. There's the arcade cabinets, the Drive Mobile, Sega Arcade Revolution. There's a lot of this stuff. They invested so much in arcade. Sega Rally. Look at that. Amazing shit. So they went through the 300 and the 800 model of home consoles. Eventually, we got the Sega Master System, the Game Gear, or the Sega Genesis, then the Game Gear, that TV tuner built-in Game Gear thing, Sega CD, Sega 32X, the Saturn, obviously, and then the Dreamcast, of course, because you had to have that. And then they gave up. And I will say, when you look at everything, you carry the 2, divide the 3, put the 10 over here and there. Sega really did a great job. And they're still innovators, but they're just not doing the console stuff. They're not in the console wars. You had the PS2 coming up in 2000, and then the GameCube, Xbox would come in the following year. It was over for Dreamcast. That was it. But let me tell you, and I've said this before, even though one documentary said it bombed, well, that's underscoring it. It's trying to imply that it didn't do shit. No, it did a lot of things. It did do work. But the problem was it didn't do the right amount of work. and as a result, it just fell apart. And people try to bring back. I mean, it had such an impact that uh, my old friend Alan became Dreamcast 84 and had his own YouTube channel. He's still there. I mean, but he just hasn't updated anything. These are all the different arcade cabinets, and one of them is there's the Sega Genesis. This is the Periscope. This is an old machine. This is a big mechanical, sort of like hit the target with lights and sound. It's like think of those toys like the Ghostbusters light zapper, where it was a magic lantern and you projected an image on the wall and you shot at the wall and stuff like that. That's kind of like what this game is. A lot of lights and sound. No video game. It was kind of like a Simon, like you see lights. There's another one I remember where you had a mechanical helicopter and you would play Simon. You would have to land on these landing pads, one here, one here, one here, one here, and that's how the game would go. I mean, this is one of the original consoles. So, if I had to think about which system had more dignity, I think Sega had the most dignity to leave. They left with dignity. They left trying to do the very thing that they started. If it wasn't for the Sega Dreamcast, I don't think there wouldn't have been enough pressure because the PS2 saw what Sony saw what Sega was doing and said, "We're going to put, a PlayStation network." They didn't have it for PS1 or PSX, so they had it for the PS2. Nintendo was still far behind. I think that some people thought Nintendo thought it was a fad. Like, we're not going to do that, so that's a fad. Like, nope, not a fad. You got to get with the times, but they weren't getting with the times. That wouldn't happen until the Wii, and then Xbox. I'm not sure, but I think their online stuff was limited. So this is the most dignifying, with Sega being the most with their when they left with the Dreamcast, they left with dignity. They started with the slot machines in Hawaii, and they stopped with the Dreamcast. Great people. Don't have too much of a low opinion of them, except with their storytelling and comics. Getting the silver medal would be Atari. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care about the Atari box or them trying to re-release the Atari in different ways so that they can get the approval of John Hancock or whoever, or Mark Busler or Metal Jesus Rocks. No, no. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Jaguar was the final system. Okay, and I was there seeing that thing fall apart. But Atari 50th, I did play a little bit for the 4th of July. I may go back and play some more. Um, but yeah, Atari, they did the best they could. Now they're owned by a European company. 50 years, okay? But really it stopped about 30 years ago. I mean, I think it's been almost 30 years. I don't know when the last would it be in 96, 95? I mean, somewhere as soon as PlayStation momentum was picking up, Atari Jaguar was out the fucking window. It didn't matter. Like, they had shitty games, even though they had a more powerful console, they had shitty games. You know what I mean? Like, you could think of all the games that could have ran on the Jaguar, but ended up on PlayStation. Tomb Raider, we could have had Tomb Raider on the Jaguar. We could have had Resident Evil on the Jaguar. We got Aliens versus Predator, which is not in the 50th anniversary celebration collection for the Switch and other places. Nope. And most of that stuff is arcade from the 70s. It's interesting to look back at this stuff, but I think Atari stank worse than Sega. Sega tried to keep up with the times. And I think that when you look at every console they had, they and every handheld and every arcade, they really, really, really pushed. But I think the problem was you had younger people or people who were video game inept, who just wanted to, like that sort of that Citizen Kane, right? That Charles Kane mentality of, I thought it would be fun to run a video game company, like, but what are you going to do with it, right? So, Charles Kane ran the newspaper into the ground, and that's what happened with Sega. They just ran the hardware shit into the ground. But they're not dead. They're still doing stuff. But what they put out now are still, it's debatable, but they put out quality goddamn games. And I shat on Sonic Frontiers, but it's at least it's a quality game. I'm just not going to buy it. Atari, it's a hit or miss, but I'd say that they still left with dignity. And then this brings us now to the bronze medal, or probably the F medal. Xbox. When you see this interview, like I think Jeremy Griggs, Geeks and Gamers, pointed out, the first half of this, she doesn't know what she's doing. It appears to be a diversity hire, and it might have been a diversity hire. But here's the other thing too. I think it's more that she doesn't know what the hell she's doing as far as the console goes. Uh, this is not the way to go out at all. I mean, Sega had the most dignity. Atari a little bit. Microsoft no. And I made a video. I was debating whether or not I should have put a Microsoft is dead playlist with my old videos, but then I was kind of praising the. I was praising the what was it? The PlayStation Portal. It was a piece of shit. It's just a Wii U successor. But and I looked at when you look back at Young, yeah. So yeah, I mean, he got really pissed. I mean, you would think that he would had been a long time Xbox fan, and this was his wake up call. Yep. I mean, my wake up call is when my 360 fucking died. I mean, I showed that off a couple of years ago. That thing was dead, and I didn't feel like replacing it. I did not feel like replacing another Xbox 360. Maybe with an Elite, but even then, I'm just kind of tired of it all. Like, what is going on? And who could forget Angry Joe, especially with the Xbox One reveal? I don't think we learned much, did we? We have not learned much. Maybe I should have bought the original Xbox, but it was either Xbox. Look, the thing is, not everybody has the money to buy 3 or 4 consoles. Now, your favorite YouTuber or Twitch streamer will buy all the consoles, all the PCs and Xboxes and PlayStations and Nintendos. But to the average fan or the average person like myself, you can only buy one. Which one do you buy? And I chose GameCube over the original Xbox, but then I chose the Xbox 360 instead of the Wii. So you figure that one out. It's about the ones it's about those systems that stand the test of time. And boy, the original 360 did not stand the test of time. And it was confusing, like with the Xbox One X, One S, the Xbox Series S, Series X, Triple X, pornography, Sexbox 369. It's all over the place. So, yeah, I would say fuck you, up yours, Microsoft. Also, too, I forgot to explain that the back half of that interview with the new president, they were going on. Jeremy was explaining that she loves the mobile game market and the cloud gaming. I'm like, I would rather. I got a board game coming in this week. I would rather play that board game than a cheap, shitty mobile game that's just going to take away my money, even like the free to play. I don't need that. I can go back and play something else. It's all about collecting those games from way back when. And that's all there is to it. Rest in peace, you filthy animal.